It's a difficult time to be a woman. There are pay gaps, workplace discrimination, the unrealistic ideals of the beauty industry, fueled by things like Instagram, toxic masculinity, the patriarchy. That's on top of the undoubted stress of raising families, and let's be honest, often being the lone voice of common sense in dysfunctional households across the world. Well, according to my wife, anyway. But fortunately, amid the fray, there are still some inspirational leading women out there fighting the good fight for equality and respect. That is, of course, Dylan Mulvaney, the Google Gemini version of a strong, independent woman. Dylan became a superstar by documenting her gender transition on TikTok, celebrating such core feminist ideals as cute fashion, frolicking in meadows, and falling in love with boys. This brave ode to 21st century womanhood earned Dylan a visit to the White House and an audience with President Joe Biden, not to mention a marketing campaign with Bud Light, whose client base of extremely normal men revolted with such force that it cost the company more than $1 billion. Well, Dylan's pivot to pop music is, of course, much more of the same. It's pink, it's trashy, and here's the serious point, it's packed with misogynist tropes.
These are the days, these are the days, these are the days of girlhood. These are the days, these are the days, these are the days of girlhood. Every night, you raise a shine, they're all mine. Thick or thin, I'll be alright. Got my dolls by my side. These are the days, these are the days, these are the days of girlhood.
Really? Many people make the mistake of thinking that all criticism of Dylan Mulvaney is transphobic. Of course they do. That's the refuge of everyone who wants to shut down legitimate debate. But Dylan's interpretation of womanhood is that all girls are lazy, depressed, promiscuous, over-medicated and addicted to shopping. She's made a very lucrative career out of saying all this stuff. Corporate America and the actual President of the United States have decided that we should celebrate it. So we have, I think, a right to maybe raise a quizzical eyebrow. I have a few supplementaries. Does anyone really believe that Dylan Mulvaney is a positive role model? For that matter, does anybody really think Dylan Mulvaney is a beautiful young woman? Is the entire act a joke at our expense? Is Dylan Mulvaney a secret agent of the Trump campaign sent to expose the utter lunacy of this cultural moment? It's not the only thing that would make sense. On a more positive note, there are some truly inspirational women fighting the real fight for women's rights and equality. Riley Gaines is one such woman. She was thrust into the spotlight as a champion swimmer who was brave enough to speak out against Leah Thomas, the formerly pretty unsuccessful male swimmer who became a woman and immediately began destroying women in women's sport. Well, Riley and 15 other female athletes are now suing the NCAA. They say it's time to fight back, and she's right. Well, joining me now to debate all that and much more is my pack, the uncensored contributor Esther Kraku, the podcaster comedian James Barr, the host of Outkick's Gains for Girls podcast and ambassador of the Independent Women's Forum, Riley Gaines, and the host of the Officer Tatum show, Brandon Tatum. Well, welcome to all four of you, a super-powered pack, all currently identifying, I believe, as their biological sex, although we can easily confirm that. Riley, great to have you on Uncensored. We'll get to the legal action you have against the NCAA in a moment. But first of all, Dylan Mulvaney, my real problem with this is you've got somebody making an absolute ton of cash by, it seems to me, mocking women and womanhood, despite until mid-20s identifying as a man, because she was born a biological man.
Well, it doesn't seem to me, as a woman myself, I can tell you that's exactly what Dylan Mulvaney is doing. He's made a killing on mocking women with his stereotypical misogynistic comments, and you hit the nail on the head. This new song, right, reducing women down to picking up medication, being lazy, not being able to get out of bed, shopping and retail therapy, hooking up with men and being sex crazed. Again, as a woman, I have not lived that lifestyle. So that's what this is. It's a mockery of a woman. And let's be real. I think the most ironic part of this is he looks like a man. If you're watching that video, he looked like a man who was wearing a wig with pigtails. He's not fooling anybody.
Brandon, I mean, it's complicated. I have nothing but respect for people who transition, for transgender people. I want them to have the rights to fairness and equality.
I'm sure you wouldn't have stopped Riley from misgendering, please.
Hang on, I'm going to come to that.
That's clearly not true.
I didn't misgender her.
No, but you would have stopped her from doing that on your programme.
Well, OK, we'll come to you in a moment, James. Let's wait. But Brandon, there's all these issues, misgendering and so on. What do you make of the wider thing of Dylan Mulvaney, this cultural phenomenon now in America, basically sending up what it means to be a woman?
I think it's absolutely appalling to give credit and credence to a person who's mocking women. Dylan Mulvaney, I don't think is serious whatsoever. You got a gay man who has a lust for fame and fortune. And what does he do? If it's being gay is not working out for you, you become trans and you try to make a lot of money, which is what Dylan Mulvaney has done. Dylan Mulvaney is not an example of women. He's not even trying to be a woman. He walks around with a 5 o'clock shadow and dresses up in women's clothes and mocks women. He's berating women. I have never in my life seen a woman act like Dylan Mulvaney. Not one person on this panel can show me a woman that's as flamboyant and radical and twitching and twisting and acting like Dylan Mulvaney.
Are you insane? Did you watch the Barbie movie? What are you talking about? What,
You're talking
and
about
who
a
are you
movie.
to
I'm talking
talk
about
about
people in
who
real
a
life.
woman is? You're
Real
a man.
life.
This is
who are
absolute
you- who are
nonsense.
you to talk about?
I'm not telling anyone who a woman is, but I'm certainly not telling someone who isn't a woman.
I've never seen a woman.
Do you think
act
Dylan
like that.
Mulvaney is
Give me an
doing
example.
women a favour with this?
Do you know what? Dylan Mulvaney is speaking to a huge generation of which none of you understand. Like,
What-
you guys are
What?
over...
That is my generation.
Dylan has
I-
I don't know
sorry,
any
that is my
woman, I've got to say, of
generation.
any age who thinks that anything other than Dylan Mulvaney is taking the piss.
Nonsense. What, so you don't know any woman under the age of, what, 40?
I know lots of women under 40. Yeah.
Right, and you think they all think Dylan is taking the piss?
Yes, they do.
No, that's insane.
The ones
Do you know what
I
I
do.
will
Here's the
say, you've sat here on your show and you've bashed Madonna and Sam Smith
Yeah.
and all of these other icons. So Dylan just
Icons to
joins...
you, they're not to me.
Dylan just
Here's
joins
the thing.
them in the whole
Yeah,
of
but the
fame.
central allegation, James, is that what she does, and this, I think this video clip is absolutely indicative. She's making.
It's a pop song.
It's
Have
a-
you not seen a Dua Lipa music video?
To be honest with you, I haven't got the energy to get into the misgendering debate, right? I think the whole personal pronoun thing is a lot of crap. But for the benefit of this conversation, let's move past that. I'll call her she, if that's what she wants to be called. But what she is not is a biological woman. Until her mid-20s, she identified as a gay man. And that's the point there that Brandon was making. And for someone who was a gay man to put their hand up and say, I'm now a woman, and by the way, I'm going to make tens
Well,
of
you're
millions...
misunderstanding what...
Hang on. So make tens of millions of dollars mocking women,
What, but the
which is how
thing
many
is-
women see it.
You wouldn't
I
say
think
Dua
that is,
Lipa was
that is
mocking
wrong.
women, or Kylie was mocking women, or Madonna was mocking women just because
Kylie
they're
and Madonna are
expressing their
women.
femininity.
They're women.
It's not okay to say that, and you're misunderstanding how difficult it is to discover
I
your
think-
identity
I'm sorry,
as a
I
woman.
think
I don't
You
see
are
Dylan
trans.
Mulvaney struggling at all.
Dylan Mulvaney has documented
Dylan Mulvaney
her
is
struggle.
reveling in mocking womanhood.
No,
Well,
she
actually,
isn't.
the thing is,
Esther.
I don't think Dylan Mulvaney, I don't take offense to what Dylan Mulvaney is doing because it makes sense. In the current media landscape that we live in, it makes sense for this man, it's a man, to become as flamboyant, effectively caricature of a woman. And I don't take offense to it because I treat Dylan Mulvaney like he is, which is
It's a
a mentally unwell person.
She is a she.
This
Can you
is he is
stop
a
misgendering
he is a
Esther?
mentally unwell person.
I actually
I don't
don't
see
think
him
you
as a
can
woman.
compel people.
He's not a woman. He's a
In
mentally
case
unwell
like
person.
She.
In a case like this, where Dylan Mulvaney's only identified as a woman for 2 years and was a gay man till her mid-20s, I don't think
But
you,
do you
James,
realise that-
James,
do you realise that Dylan-
James, I don't think you have any right to compel
you know?
women
Do you
to
understand?
say that this is
Do you understand
a
how
woman.
difficult it is to realise that you're trans? To understand the complex. Do you
Sure.
understand the
And how does
complexity
this
of
help
that?
them?
You have trans
How does
friends.
this help
You
trans
know
people?
Do you have
that
any
it is
idea
difficult
how
to find your
difficult it is
identity and that
to
people
be a
accidentally
woman?
go down the
Riley has a
wrong
very
path.
good
We've
riposte of
discussed
that.
this before.
Hang on, Riley.
Doesn't make you right.
You mentioned you have no idea how difficult it is to identify as trans. Let me ask you, do you have any idea how difficult it is to be a woman in today's climate and then to be entirely mocked by a man merely posing to be a
That's
woman?
how
do you
you
have
feel,
any
and that is
difficult-
not
how
true.
idea-
That is
How do you-
not
how do you-
Dylan's
yeah,
how do you
but why?
know?
You-
Well,
Dylan
it's not
is
just
not-
how I feel.
How
There's
do you
been
know?
an
Intention
is
avalanche.
not to
There has
mock
been an
women. Of
avalanche
course
of
it's
people
not.
on TikTok, on the left and the right, coming out now saying, "Hold on, this
Dylan
is wrong."
is a
And this isn't the first time that
beautiful
Dylan Mulvaney
human
has
being.
been under fire.
Here's the thing.
His first days of girlhood. He
I'm
came
not
out
gonna have a
after day
conversation with you. Keep
365 or whatever
misgendering
day
her.
it was.
You can't compel people to do that.
Yes,
you
I can,
can't.
because
No, you
it's-
can't. You can call
It's
Dylan Mulvaney.
discrimination.
You can call Dylan
It's
Mulvaney
discrimination,
whatever
Piers.
you want.
It's discrimination.
But Riley Gaines, of all
And listen,
people,
Riley, I do sympathise with you,
You know
about
what?
how
No,
difficult
let
it is
me
to be
tell
Riley
a woman.
Gaines has had to
You know
compete
what?
against
Riley, I
biological
want to listen
males.
to how difficult it is to be a woman because I want to understand that. I know that's tough. As a gay man, I'm also a victim of the patriarchy. We all bloody are. Like, it's
Look, we don't need to
bloody
do the
awful.
identity
I've seen the
politics.
Barbie movie.
You are
Let me tell you
part of the
something. You
patriarchy. What are you
mentioned-
talking
I've
about?
read the book. I
You
understand, but
mentioned
you're
mentioned discrimination.
you being a
You
woman.
mentioned discrimination.
Let Riley
Let me
speak.
tell you
Stop
something.
talking over the
Do you
woman.
believe
Finish my
that it's
point. No one's
okay?
allowing me to finish a point.
What's your point?
Am I
Go
allowed
ahead.
to speak?
Sure.
God, okay, fine, I finished.
What's your point? You haven't got one, have
My
you?
point, no,
Riley.
my point is, Riley, that
Let me
it's-
say something.
I understand how hard it is
Okay,
to be
go
a woman
ahead.
and that you fought so hard to be a woman, and I have so much empathy with that, so I can understand why it is so upsetting when, in your view, someone who isn't a woman comes along and says they are, because it undermines all of the history of what women have been through.
Yes.
But that's not a trans
Well-
woman's fault. That is men's fault. Men are the problem, not Dylan, not trans women.
men are the problem.
Except
No,
trans
lying
women are
about
men.
objective
Men are the- of course,
truth
I
is
knew it
the
would come back
problem.
to us.
That is what the problem is.
Riley?
Are you saying it's not? Are you
Let me
saying
tell
you're
you
not
something.
a victim
You-
of men? Because what are we talking
No,
about?
what
She's
I'm
a
saying
victim
here
of
is what we are
biological
suffering
men
from as a
saying
nation.
they're women.
Really globally,
And
what we're
women
suffering from.
forever have been a victim of men. That is truth.
No, she's
right?
a victim. She's a victim of gay
Here,
men.
here, let me take
That's
you
what
back.
this-
Let me
that's
tell
this
you
is
what
about.
So
I'm a
gay men are
victim of.
victim. Do you know what? Let's just pick on all the minorities.
Let me-
Let's throw
Dylan
Megan in as
Mulvaney
well.
is
Let's
a
chuck
gay
in
man
Megan.
that's doing this.
You think
So
Megan's
is
a
Liam
minority?
Thomas and all
I am
these other
so
people.
done with this conversation.
Let
Yeah.
me tell you. Let
Isn't
me
it
tell
interesting
you
how
what I am a
James wants
victim
to
of.
control everyone's thought?
No, I don't. I
You
just
wanna
want everyone to
control-
have a
hang on,
nice, civilized
hang on.
conversation.
You want to control
Piers.
everyone's speech
Why
and
is
how
no
they
one-
speak and how they refer to people. They're not allowed to have their opinions.
Yes,
Only
they are.
you want to mansplain
not-
to women what they should be thinking, and at the same time you want to blame the
I'm
patriarchy.
not. I want everyone to be kind to everyone.
Oh, no, you don't.
That's what. Yes, I
Hold
do.
on, stop right
yes,
there.
I do.
Don't be like
It is
me,
not
the
kind.
patriarchy. Want to
It
be
is-
kind to me?
It is not kind to ask a young girl to undress in front of a man. That is not kindness. What kindness
Right.
is. And if that's what you believe your definition of kindness is, you have a totally warped perception. And let me tell you, it's not inclusive to ask a girl like myself what happened to me and my teammates. It's not inclusive to ask us to smile and step aside and allow these men onto our podiums. That is not what inclusion is. That is exclusion. And it's exclusive to the very female athletes or women in general who Title IX in the women's sporting category was passed to protect and to honor and to celebrate and to uphold.
And
So I think
Riley-
we have
Riley,
very
for those
different
who-
definitions of what kindness really is.
Right, so Riley, I totally agree with you. And Riley, for those who don't know what's going on with the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association in America, you're one of many athletes, female athletes, suing them for their transgender participation policy. Why?
Yeah, so basically the NCAA, their most basic duties are to protect athletes, both male and female, to protect their opportunities, to protect their safety, to protect their privacy in areas of undressing. And bottom line is the NCAA is failing on every account of that by allowing men into our fields, onto our courts, in the pool with us, in our locker rooms. So that's what this lawsuit is about. That's what we're hoping to change here. So again, myself plus 15 other athletes who have been adversely impacted at the hands of the NCAA are now taking legal action and saying what they are doing explicitly and actively and directly is discriminating against us on the basis of our sex. And so to your point, if we want to talk about discrimination, that's exactly what my teammates and myself and my competitors and girls around the country, again, at the hands of the NCAA, continue to have happen to
Well, you're
them.
also discriminating. But what about lesbians? Are they allowed in your changing rooms?
They're biological women.
No, but you're talking about women.
They're
who-
women.
Yeah, they're women.
But you're worried about women seeing
Look,
your body?
I mentioned
Like,
nothing
what's
about.
going on?
I mentioned nothing about. No. What I have a problem with is I don't want to see a naked man's genitalia. I'm married. I have a husband. You think my husband wants me seeing another naked man while he also gets to simultaneously, non-consensually at that, get to see me naked? No way. That goes against my values as a Christian. That goes against my values as a married woman. No way. That's what I have a problem with. It has nothing to do with his sexual orientation.
I wanna
don't know
play-
if Thomas
I wanna
likes
play a
men or
clip-
women or what, but
Right. I want to
either
play
way.
a clip, Riley. This is you on Joe Rogan 12 days ago, which you talked about another aspect of the Leah Thomas story. Esther, do you feel educated?
I feel the opposite. I actually feel myself losing brain cells. I actually thought my brain was going to leak through my nose, realizing Leah Thomas or Liam Thomas or whatever the name is, dating history. Look, I don't think, the reason why I don't get as worked up or upset about this is because I recognize society's flaw. They have given mentally unwell people the status of being right. They've given the status of validating their delusions. And in other ways, compelling us to validate those delusions. I'm not offended by Dylan Mulvaney. It doesn't offend me because this is a mentally unwell person. Why should I be offended that this person is trolling? I actually think a lot of conservative stations make the mistake of giving people like Dylan Mulvaney the publicity that he craves. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm looking at a mentally well person. That's a lie. I'm not going to do that.
You're gatekeeping womanhood, which is the most manly
difficult.
thing you could
Here's the
possibly
thing.
do. So I'm going to say, do you want me to start misgendering?
You were educated at the
GQ Man
expense
of
of
the
the
Year
British
goes to
taxpayer.
Esther.
You were educated at the
What a
expense of the
manly
British
trait.
taxpayer, and you don't know the difference between a man and a woman.
James,
Are you
just think about
serious?
it. You cannot compel people to use
I'm
the
not
language
compelling people,
you
but
want
I
them
want
to
people
use.
to be kind.
I am kind.
You're just
I'm
calling-
lovely.
You're calling her
kind.
mentally unwell.
He is mentally unwell.
That's not nice. That is very
excuse
unkind.
me, I'm
Everyone
sorry.
on this panel so
If
far has
I-
had zero
if you
empathy
saw
for
someone-
any of the people we're
if you saw
discussing.
someone-
You had no
if I have-
empathy.
if I have
You,
more
you don't
empathy
want to
for
hear
Riley
other people's opinions.
Then Riley has
you
for
don't want to
literally
hear
anyone
other
else.
people's opinions.
Yeah, Brandon, coming to you.
Everyone
Where's-
has an opinion. You may not like the opinion, which is
But
fine.
where's
I
the
don't
love?
agree with you.
Where's
it
the love?
doesn't
It's in
matter.
not lying.
You think love is lying to people and deceiving people. I think love is telling people the truth and being consistent across the board. Dylan Mulvaney is crazy.
Where's the dignity?
Now let me tell you.
Where's
Let me
the
tell you this.
respect?
Let me tell you this.
Where's the
Let's
respect?
put this in perspective.
Where's the respect?
Because I think people get caught up in the gender role thing. Just imagine if a person was white and decided to identify as black and did all of these crazy
We've
things
had
that
this
they
argument
thought
has been had so many times.
stereotypically. Listen, that they did stereotypically what black people would do. We would be outraged.
We would.
It would be a sham.
I agree.
We would not accept it. And so we shouldn't do that. What Dylan Mulvaney is doing is wearing women face. The person is not a woman. He's not trying to be a woman. He's impersonating.
Honestly,
negative
like I can't
perceptions of a
continue to
woman.
sit here listening to this absolute nonsense. Riley, I want to ask you a question because a lot of this is to do with sport and how you feel it's unfair because you're up against people with
It is
a
unfair.
bigger body, right? So do you think
With
it's
men.
unfair that someone who's taller than you or has more strength than you can be in the same team? Is that the argument we're making here? Is that what's unfair?
I think it's
Riley?
to do with the chromosomes, but I'll let Riley answer that.
The conclusion you're drawing, let's look at this for what it is. A man, on average, you take any sport, you take track and field, you take swimming. Swimming is the sport I played, let's look at swimming. Across the field consistently, if you look at the world record against the men on the men's side versus the world record on the women's side, consistently that athletic performance gap is 10 to 12%. Someone being a few inches taller than me, it does not make up for that 10 to 12% performance gap we're talking about by having a man competing against a woman. Of course, there are natural advantages that people possess, but what we're talking about specifically here is beyond comparison to what the conclusion you're drawing right
All right,
now.
let's-
It's
The
beyond
conclusion I'm drawing is that we
You-
should
you would
just get
never
rid of
see it
gender
the opposite
altogether
way.
and we should
No, no,
have
you would never-
sports based
you would
on
never
body
see-
metrics because then
So
that
you would like to
certainly
have
be
the
a lot
Olympic.
fairer.
So just to be clear, the Olympic Games, you'd have gender neutral.
Yes, it would, because the
Oh, don't
only
be so
the
ridiculous.
only reason,
And
Riley,
women-
surely
women
you
would-
agree, the
women
only
would
reason women's
struggle.
sport exists is because men were gatekeeping sport for so long and then finally said, you know what, fine, have your own. But really, if we just remove
many biological women?
If we remove
Hang
gender
on.
from sports, please let me finish my point, then we won't have this issue. Safety
Oh,
won't be an
so
issue.
I'm
We
sorry.
can make sure that
That is-
everyone
that
has
is
a
ridiculous.
fair chance
That is so
at
Insane.
competing
James,
together.
that is so spectacularly ill-informed and dumb.
Well, is it, Riley?
Wait,
if
are you saying we
if you
should-
have a
are you saying-
gender-neutral
are you-
Olympics, no
I'm
biological
saying,
women
Okay,
no,
okay.
you're
would
missing my
win
point.
a gold
Let me-
medal,
let me just
except
add a
in
point.
I'm
possibly.
saying that
Are
we
you
have
saying that we
groups
should
of
get
people
rid of
competing
men and
against
women's
people
sports
that have similar
altogether?
body types, body metrics, bone index,
That
whatever.
makes no
no
sense. You
understanding
you
of
clearly have
physiology
never played
whatsoever.
sports before.
Are you
He's never
are
really
you
played
saying that
sports
we should
before.
get rid of sporting categories altogether and have just one big
Yeah, he is,
pool?
yeah.
No, I'm saying people should compete against people
Okay,
that have a
okay.
similar body type so that it's fairer.
That makes no sense. You've never played sports before.
He's never
So if
had.
you're,
I
if,
think
if
it's a
we're
lot of
talking
saying
about
that's what we're
getting
talking
rid,
about.
As
like
a spoon
saying- hold
race
on.
at
I've
best.
come up with
If
a
you're saying that
solution
we
for the
are-
problem that doesn't exist.
No, you haven't.
That's
You just
not
don't
a solution.
understand it.
Well, you don't understand it
there is
either.
no
If you're saying
comparison
that we
between
should
the
get
bone
rid-
density and body mass of males and females. That's why they separate the sexes in sport.
That's not
because
why they separate
biological
the
males
sexes.
would
They separate them
destroy
because
is.
men did not
biological
want women
females.
playing sports.
There's a reason they
Track it
separate
back.
them.
If
Track
you're
it back.
saying that we should get rid of sporting categories altogether, do you support the idea of eliminating the Paralympics versus the Olympics?
I think that's a really great question, and
Oh my God!
I need to look into that because, as you say,
The
You
conundrum.
want Paralympians to
pretzel.
compete against
I would
Olympians.
imagine not.
It
to be
always
honest,
twists back
You
on
are a
itself.
total
but
It
maybe
always
that's the
does.
point. Maybe that's the point.
The point is you never
That's
play sport,
very.
have you?
That's very.
Have you ever played
see,
sport?
Ablephobic.
all of
Hang on, hang on, hang on.
That is
I think
incredibly
we're all- I think we're all
ablephobic.
wondering-
I
hang
was gonna
on.
look it up. I don't
Time
even know
out,
anything
time
about
out.
sport.
I want to ask James one simple
Are you
question.
don't know
saying
anything
people
about
who
sport.
are
James, have you
disabled
ever played
don't
sport at
deserve
all?
a chance
No,
to
of course I haven't
He's
played
never
sport.
played sport
Do I look
in
like
his
a person
life.
that's into sport?
What he wants
No.
is Paralympians taking on
No, I
Olympians.
don't want that. I
Honestly,
want
He wants
everyone to
gender
be
neutral
safe. I
Olympics.
want everyone to
Honestly,
be happy. I
none-
want everyone
none
to be
of-
treated with dignity
James,
and respect.
none of this.
Actually, you don't. You
we-
want unfairness and inequality to
We
rage
would-
Absolutely.
and ruin
How
women's
dare
sport
you tell me what to
irrevocably.
think? You just had a go at me about
You've
that.
just said a load of crap.
Well, so have you.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
I
Honestly-
understand physiology and sport.
Well, good for you.
You don't.
Good for you, but you don't understand
Here's-
loving
here's
a
the thing,
human
here's the
being.
thing.
Huh?
We wouldn't
Loving a
be
human-
having all of this
I understand it
conversation.
enough. I've got 3 sons and a daughter, and they don't play sport
then where's
together
the
in
dignity?
a fair way.
Where's the dignity and
We
respect
wouldn't
from
be
this
having-
All right, wait, let's move on. I want to discuss a couple of other things before we finish. One is Oprah Winfrey. We may even get some agreement on this. We might do. Oprah Winfrey's fought back tears because she was basically caught taking these weight loss drugs, Ozempic, I think. She said it stopped her blaming herself for being unable to control her body shape with willpower. Of course, she was the front woman for Weight Watchers and had to give that up. But when she was caught not actually doing anything the Weight Watchers tells her to do, but basically taking a tablet to lose weight. I want to play the clip of Oprah talking about this.
I took on the shame that the world gave to me. For 25 years, making fun of my weight was national sport. And then I read the headline that Mr. Blackwell, the tastemaker of the time, called me bumpy, lumpy, and downright dumpy. Because when I tell you how many times I have blamed myself, because you think I'm smart enough to figure this out, and then to hear all along it's you fighting your brain.
Now, the point, Esther, about this is I'm afraid I like Oprah, known her a bit over the years, but she was caught basically defrauding the world,
yeah.
right? Because she was a spokeswoman for Weight Watchers, and yet quietly and secretly, and denied it, actually, she was taking one of these weight loss drugs. We think it may have been Ozempic. It was something similar if it wasn't. But she was just caught.
Well, she's playing the same game that all celebrities do. She's following the money. You would never hear her talking about this if there wasn't a paycheck at the end of it. So I don't actually begrudge her for this. What I do begrudge her for is trying to play the victim and saying that I've taken on the burdens that the world has put on me. It's my fault. It is your fault. You choose what goes into your mouth and how much exercise you do. I don't believe in validating people's, and this goes back to Dylan Mulvaney, people's delusions, right? Things are black and white. Your actions related to your weight are directly because of what your diet and lifestyle. And I'm sorry, you can't blame anyone for that. You can sign a £12 million check and advertise for Ozempic if you want to, but don't lie to the public or pretend like we're stupid.
Yeah, Brandon, I mean, to me, it was the deceit and the hypocrisy. And I think it's been pretty damaging to Oprah, this. And no amount of her tears, pretty crocodile tears, I think, no amount of that is going to change my view that on this one, she really pulled a fast one on the public. And in particular, all those women that looked up to her and were following what they thought she represented, Weight Watchers, and their guide to how you lose weight, when in fact she was popping these pills secretly behind everyone's back.
This is what they do. You know, she only cried when she got caught. She didn't cry when
Right.
she was taking those Ozempic pills or whatever the case may be. And then they try to change language. She says she can't change her body shape. Yeah, nobody can change your body shape, but you can change your body weight depending on what you eat. Are you in a caloric deficit or not? Are you working out or not? But she was saying she was working out, giving these young women false hope. And she did it to them. She should be ashamed of herself. But instead of taking responsibility, which I would have said, fine, you took responsibility. We know people cheat, people do stuff. She made it about her and became the victim. Lady, nobody's putting pressure on you about your weight. That only comes from within. I don't care how much I weigh. And if I don't care how much I weigh, that's on me. That didn't have nothing to do with society. So she should be ashamed of herself. But this is what celebrities do. They only cry when they get caught.
Yeah. Riley, your thoughts on this?
Look, I don't really have a problem with someone taking Ozempic. There's been a lot of people in my life, people who I know and love, who have resorted to Ozempic, people who I know work hard. I know they exercise. I know they try and eat right, all the things, who had a harder time losing weight, and they've been able to keep the weight off with Ozempic. So, I mean, not necessarily my cup of tea, but by all means, I guess, as long as, looking at long-term effects and different things. I don't think we know those yet. Again, why I would never participate. And granted, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm active. So I don't have a problem with Ozempic. But just as you all said, I have a problem with deceiving the public, getting people to buy in wholeheartedly into this program, into what she's trying to sell here, which, again, bottom line, what she's trying to do is trying to sell something. That's
I'm
what I have a
surprised
problem
that's
with.
what
And
it
again,
is.
false
Let me
hope,
come
that's
and
what
see
it
if we
is.
can finally reach a point of consensus, because not even you, James Barr, surely could say that what Oprah's done here is honourable, has integrity,
I just
or
think
isn't
it's
anything
crazy.
other than a massive deception.
This is a woman who's had to live with so much shame about her body for her
So
whole
she's a
life,
victim.
and now you are trying to give her more shame.
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with all
yeah.
of you horrible
Hold on.
trolls?
Wow.
Leave Oprah
she-
alone.
she-
My God, who
She
cares?
admitted to lying.
Guess what? She
Oprah was
admitted
being
to
paid
it.
tens of millions
You're
to
just
promote
do
Weight
you know what? No,
Watchers.
what this really is that you still are angry at Oprah for destroying your beloved royal family by sitting down with Meghan and Harry, and
No,
it's just
Oprah
a
actually
lazy attack.
Oprah did my first show at CNN, couldn't have been nicer to me. I've always got on great with Oprah. On
What,
this
what
one,
a backstabbing bitch you are. Because
wow.
she sat
Hey,
here.
hey, James, be kind.
I thought he was supposed to be nice.
You're not being kind
Remember,
here.
this is Mr.
Listen,
Kindness.
if you punch down, I
Yes,
will punch
viewers,
back.
here
I
he
will
is.
punch back.
Here he is, Mr. Be Kind. You backstabbing little bitch.
Is that, sorry, did you just do a gay impression of me? Because that's very
I did a James
homophobic.
Barr impression.
That's a
No, that's
very
how you sound.
homophobic
Only,
impression.
That's how
I
you
didn't even know you were
sound.
gay.
Wow, that's
Your
how you
sexual
sound.
Sure you didn't.
Your sexual
Sure you
attitude doesn't
didn't.
interest me.
He would
Uh,
have assumed.
Finally, I want to end with this. James Bond. Apparently, the person tipped to be the new James Bond is Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is, famously, he's married to a director who is 24 years older than him. He took her name when they got married. He's a kale eater. I mean, all of this is ringing alarm bells to me, I must say. He says, I'm being a feminist. I'm happy to say I'm a feminist. Being a feminist is just believing in equal rights. Man, woman, gay, straight, black, white, we're all in it together. So we got a kale-eating guy with curly hair who took his wife's name. Riley, where do we sit with this?
I don't know if this is a good representation of James Bond. But look, hey, I can honestly say I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I don't know if I'm the most qualified to talk on this, but I do know that's not a good representation of who James Bond
right,
plays.
It's not any of
The
us
thing
talking
is,
about other experiences we're not
obviously,
qualified to give.
here's the thing: actors are not required to stay in character when they're not on
I'm
set.
told he's a very good actor.
Right.
That being said, I suspect some of his beliefs will filter into the film because the last James Bond film, Daniel Craig was crying.
Yeah.
So I suspect.
I mean, Brandon, I don't know
he's going
about
to
you,
do
mate, but
something
I'm just
similar.
not sure I can have a kale-eating James Bond.
Many of the Dutch eat kale.
Why are you
Actually, it's
trying
quite
to
popular
enforce gender
in the
roles
Netherlands.
so heavily? What's wrong with someone eating
I think-
kale?
Well, because it suggests they may have vegan tendencies.
What's wrong with that?
Can't have
to
a
make the
vegan
planet-
Bond.
trying to save the planet.
Soft.
Brandon?
That mean they're soft.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. They mean they're soft.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in a man's man. I don't really like these feminine
guys
guys who go
kale-
out.
kale is
They
fiber.
don't seem to be.
God.
Men
They don't seem
too
to be
need
historic
fiber.
in any way. They don't seem. I know it's okay to eat fiber. I'm just saying the insinuation that the guy got curly hair, he looked like a softie,
Yeah.
You
and he's
are.
trying to play James Bond. There ain't no real man. Listen, even the gentleman on here that calls himself gay, there is no situation
So
that you
what
will find
calls
yourself in.
himself gay? What is wrong with you?
I mean,
I have sympathy
how
for the
do I
people in the
verify
comments
if you're
right now
gay?
that are like, what is
How
going
can I
on? Why is this
verify-
guy
You know,
here?
we don't
I
even know
I
actually.
I'm here.
Verify
Brandon, to be fair, we don't
You
actually
see
know
the gay.
whether this guy is going to be
Explain it
James
as
Bond.
you
One thing we can say with absolute cast iron certainty is that Barbara Broccoli will not be appointing James Barr as the next 007.
Maybe she should.
Because there is a limit to what kind of man's man we want as 007, and it ain't James Barr. Thank you to my panel. That was very lively.
But it's
I appreciate
also not
it.
you, Piers.
We definitely kept it uncensored. And Riley, keep up the great work. Go win that case. Let's
Absolutely.
get some fairness and equality back to women's sport. You've taken a lot of heat for your position on this, and I'm 100% behind you. It is the new form of doping.
Thank you,
It is
Piers.
blatant cheating.
Insanity.
And women's sport and the integrity of women's
Lies.
sport is being destroyed at the altar of wokery and virtue signalling.
Riley, I
and
send
you
you
are
love.
a shining light of courage, and I
For
salute you.
God's sake.
So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
Robin.
Pierce. I agree it is insanity.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brendan.
I'm sending you all
Take
love
care. Thank
and
you, guys.
dignity and respect.
And remember, be kind, you little bitch.
Let's stop validating
Let's leave it.
delusions.
Stop doing a
All right.
homophobic just
I'm
turn.
just-
Let's
it's the way you
stop
speak. It's not my
validating
fault.
delusions.
It's over.
That's
It's not
all I
my
have
fault
to
you
say.
speak like that. Thank you very much, everyone.